I was kidding myself thinking the West had reached peak woke and the fight back had now started with another tiny sign, although I had to look to Britain to find it. His Conservative government has ordered that new buildings have single-sex toilets for women and for men, no more of these gender-neutral ones. But in Australia, the woke revolution is still raging, and a new survey of more than 3,000 voters has been done by the Australian Population Research Institute. They've asked people, to what extent do you have a sense of belonging to Australia? You'd hope the vast majority would say absolutely, where else would be home? But in one city in particular, no. Here are the results. In multicultural Melbourne, just 49%, less than half, said they had a great sense of belonging here. Compare that to Brisbane, 59%. The region's 62%. 10% of Melbourneians said they had only a slight sense of belonging. 3% said none at all. Joining me are Daniel Wild, Deputy Executive Director of the Institute of Public Affairs, and Steve Trevuris, Senior Lecturer in History at Campion College, co-author of The Forgotten Menzies. Daniel, what did that survey tell you?
Well, a couple of things, Andrew. The first is that the multiculturalism that we had in the post-World War II era is very different to the multiculturalism that we have today. It worked well for many decades after World War II. It's not working today. We're a divided society. We can see that on our streets and on our university campuses. Looking into the survey, a couple of really interesting things, Andrew, and it won't surprise us to learn that one of the key factors determining the extent to which somebody feels a sense of belonging in Australia is whether or not they're at university. Just 28% of those who are currently at university said they had a sense of belonging in Australia to a great extent. That more than doubles to those who are not or who have never been on a university campus. And this just reinforces everything that we've been talking about, Andrew, which is the higher education system is failing the next generation of Australians. It's not a surprise that so few people have a sense of belonging when you're told Australia is a bad country and a racist country. Why would you feel a sense of belonging in a country that tells you that? So that's one of the key driving forces.
How long have we been saying this? How long, Daniel, have both of us been saying it? Stephen Trevura at the university stand condemned, and you've worked for them for years. What say you?
Well, everything that Daniel said is absolutely true. One thing I will just say, and I think it's important, is that the post-World War II immigration policy was not under a policy of multiculturalism. It was under a policy of assimilation. Now, inevitably, ethnic cultures did emerge, but it's really in the 1970s under Whitlam and then Fraser that the idea of multiculturalism, which actually begins in Melbourne, starts to become very powerful. And at the same time, you've also got radically sort of non-Western cultures coming in. So at the same time, you've got non-Western cultures coming in, particularly from the Middle East and Asia, and rather than affirming assimilation like they did after World War II, on top of that, they affirmed multiculturalism. And that has led to a cultural fragmentation in Australia, and no one really knows how to fix it. There needs to be a re-emphasis on Australian unity, and John Howard was really good on this. He said he was not comfortable with the policy and the term multiculturalism. Peter Dutton, the Liberal Party can lead the way on this. Peter Dutton needs to come out and say we need to talk about Australian unity and not multiculturalism, and that is something that I think is going to actually speak to a lot of Australians.
Look, I think that's spot on. Daniel, I want to show you another warning, this again from Britain, of where we're going under this that both of you described. Britain's just held elections for its councils. This is the winner of a ward in Leeds, a major city in Yorkshire.
We will not be silent. We will raise the voice of Gaza. We will raise the voice of Palestine. Allahu Akbar.
Daniel Wild, chance of Allahu Akbar, a win for Gaza. I think it's not a win for Britain or even Yorkshire then.
Well, it's bone-chilling, Andrew, and we just had Brendan O'Neill out here in Australia for a couple of weeks. He's one of the great intellectuals in Britain, used to be the editor of Spiked, and he made this point to us, which is that Britain has gone probably further down the road of this racial, religious and ethnic separatism that's now driving some of its politics. But he said, look, Australia is not too far off. And I think that there are signs that may be happening here. We know that when you've got up to a third of all voters in certain federal electorates, like Tony Burke's electorate in Western Sydney, who identify as having an Islamic belief or a Muslim, that is driving a lot of the policy from the Labor Party. We've seen that in terms of the response to the conflict in the Middle East. We're seeing it in terms of their approach to foreign policy. And we've got this real issue where we have this fragmentation in our society. And, you know, if you ask people what are Australian values, I'm not too sure that you would get the same response across our nation. So it gets to this point that we need to have the re-emphasis on our shared values. There is much more that unites us than divides us. But unfortunately, we're just not getting that leadership out of Canberra. We saw that with The Voice, one of the most divisive proposals ever put to the public. That did us no favours in terms of having a more unified nation.
Oh, you also see it with flying 3 flags, 2 of them racial flags instead of 1. You see it in the antipathy to Australia Day, not allowing councils to skip it. I mean, in any which way you look, you're seeing this disintegration, which is easy. Any idiot can, pull a country apart. It takes courage and leadership and intelligence to bring it together. This government's got no clue.